On today's show, Shamit Dua is back for part 2 and a deep dive into what the Pelicans might look like and how that might, of course, impact the Hawks in the draft next season. We'll get into all that and more right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2053 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Wednesday evening into Thursday. And I want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcasts. We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so please like this video as you're watching it. Leave a comment below. Tell your friends and all that fun stuff. If you missed it, this is actually going to be part 2 of a 2-part discussion with myself and Shamit Dua, who covers the Pelicans in deep dive fashion at In the Know on Substack, in the podcast world, etc. Part 1 focused on Charles Bassey, the new look Hawks addition in the most recent days. But also, beyond that, it focused heavily on the trade between the Hawks and the Pelicans on draft night. Shamit's reporting, the reaction in New Orleans, the reaction in Atlanta, the analysis of that, and more. But now, part 2 will be on the fallout from that trade, which means a discussion of how good or more, hopefully for the Hawks, how bad the Pelicans will actually be this season. Talk about Zion, talk about DeJounte Murray, where they are weak, where they might be strong, and all of that, expectations, projections, etc. So without any further delay, we'll dive right back in now with myself and Shamit Dua on the Pelicans and the impact of the Hawks for 2026. So I wanted to do this, setting the stage, but also ask you about what the team's going to be, because they are kind of hard to figure out on some level, because last year was such a disaster and it was injury riddled and they won 21 games. But the roster quality was obviously better than a 21-win team. So you're not going off that baseline necessarily. Not to read everything off here, but like Brandon Ingram played 18 games. He's now gone, of course, but 20 games for Herb Jones, 30 games for Zion, 31 for DeJounte. Like, just everybody got hurt. It was a mess of a team. And this summer they've been doing other things too. Jordan Poole's on this team now, for Hawks fans that don't know that necessarily. DeJounte's coming back at some point from the Achilles, old friend of the Hawks. But I mean, all that to say, like, we could dig into what they're going to be good at, what they're not going to be good at, what you're worried about, what swings the season. But are you of the mind that some are, that this might be a bad team? Because, like, they're current. I mean, at FanDuel, our sponsor on the podcast, I think they have like the 5th or 6th worst win total projection in the league. Like, that, it's a pretty low projection. I'm not saying you have to agree with that, but like, just to set the stage, like, how are you feeling about the team, independent of the trade? It's all dependent on the trade. I understand it matters, but take that out of it for a second. How good's this team right now?
In my opinion, not good. I think the Pelicans are short on depth. They're short on depth in key positions, especially the center position, but they don't have much guard depth right now either. And so much hinges on, this is such a big bet on Zion Williamson. And that is a bet that I personally don't feel comfortable making, given the last 6 years, or the first 6 years of his career, however you want to frame that. He is a player who routinely misses more than half the season. And when he's had a few seasons that he's played above 60 games, only 2, I believe, it's taken him a while to round into form. And look, I think everyone understands that he's an extremely tantalizing prospect. I don't even know if you call him a prospect anymore, player.
Yeah, player.
And he, like many of these things, he has unbelievable highs, and he can completely take over a game. And if you get 70 games of this all-NBA version of him, then yeah, this is going to be a decent team. I wouldn't say it's going to be a team that is going to fight for home court, but I would say it's going to fight for the play-in and maybe the lower seeds of the playoffs. But like, that is such an insane best case scenario to hope for, given the track record we've seen. Like, is it possible that he puts a season together like that? Sure. Has he done it yet? The 70 games and playing at a high level through all those 70 games? No, not yet. Not yet. You know, he had one where he played 70, and for half the season, I thought he was like maybe the league's 50th or 55th best player, because he just wasn't in shape. He wasn't impactful on defense, and his offensive efficiency wasn't that high. And then by the time, I want to say right around All-Star break, maybe a little bit before or maybe a little bit after. I don't know the exact split. He started rounding into form, and then, he was a world destroyer until the end of the season. He got hurt in the play-in game against the Lakers. He just, scored 40 points, and it's like, oh, okay, that guy can get it done, but we rarely see him. So I think it's a bet on him. I don't like what they've done at the center position. I'm not particularly high on their players that they have there. And I just think that the West is so loaded that the Pelicans need every single thing to break right, including huge internal development from young players to even have a chance at the playoffs. That's just where I'm at with them.
Yeah, I generally agree. I mean, the team better than I do, but of course, Hawks fans are probably salivating by that answer because, if that's the upside, that's a mid first round pick, and I've been saying the whole time, even if it is a mid first round pick, the trade is still a success, generally speaking, for the Hawks. But Zion, there is upside there still. I agree with you about not calling him a prospect anymore. He's just a player. He's 25 now, but he's still a guy who can have real high upside. And I actually don't know what's the timeline on DeJounte. When's he supposed to be back? Because he's actually kind of important to this team.
Yeah, they haven't put a date on it. DeJounte's been all over social media this summer, just kind of
as he always is. Let me just say that, as he always is.
Yeah, he's been showing his progression. There's a couple of videos. I don't think he's done any contact work or anything, but there's videos of him dunking the ball already. So I think that's promising. So I would anticipate that. I just don't imagine him coming back before Christmas, to be honest with you. And if you're being real about it, I would think after this calendar year is the best bet of it,
Yeah.
But they haven't put a firm time on there yet.
I didn't think so. I was just wanting to make sure. But I was always a little bit lower on DeJounte, but look, he's still a good player when he's available. Hopefully he's still a good player when he comes back from the Achilles. I assume he will be. But their guard position, there's a lot invested. This is one of those things that's also interesting. I have a brand on my podcast that I think rookies as a general rule, especially one and done rookies, are almost always bad. And the Pelicans have a lot of reason to play Jeremiah Fears, who's almost certainly going to be bad as a rookie. And I think he's a good prospect, but rookie guards, 19-year-old guards, they're never good. Same with Queen. Queen's also hurt right now, which makes it even harder for him. But you mentioned the center position. They got Yves Missi, you got Kevon Looney and Derek Queen. Every time you're playing, if you're the Pelicans, one of these guys, Fears or Queen, you're hurting yourself in the short term, but they also don't want to not play them. So how is that going to work? That's a leading question, but how do you view that as far as incentives for the coaching staff versus the front office and all that? For me, it's if I'm a Hawks fan, I'm rooting for as much Fears and Queen as possible.
I think it's competing incentives for the front office and the coaching staff. And I think honestly, in a way, Willie Green is kind of being set up for failure here in that I think he's entering the final year of his contract. He's been people freak out about this, the framing of this, but there's no better framing of this. Joe Dumars was mandated to keep Willie Green, and so they're keeping him. But that doesn't mean they won't get rid of him in the middle of the season. And so, I think it's if you want to evaluate the dollars of this, it's cheaper to fire the guy midseason and temporarily give an interim a pay bump than to fire the guy in the offseason and then hire a brand new head coach and go through the whole, process. And then he wants to bring his assistants and all that kind of stuff. So just want to lay the groundwork there. But Willie Green historically has not been someone who likes to play rookies. And if he does play rookies, he plays them because they're good at defense. And that's not a calling card of either Fears or Queen at this moment, and it may never be. And so, but the front office has clearly invested strongly in these two young players. So I can't imagine that they will tolerate Green not playing the guys that they drafted. So it's going to be very interesting to watch that play out in real time. But I think if you're Willie Green, you're coaching for your job, you're just going to try to win as many games as possible. And the way he's going to see the way to do that as playing the guys he trusts, which are the vets. Jose Alvarado is someone that Willie Green has a really good relationship with. And you know what? I'll say this. Jose, through his whole career with the Pelicans, I think it's been over like 4,000 minutes. He's won his minutes. Like, he comes in and he's been a positive player, which is an insane thing at his size and his skill set. The fact that when he gets on the court, they literally win those minutes. It's pretty insane. So I think if you're trying to win games, you got to get Jose on the court. I'm not saying he's a good player, but he wins his minutes. Whereas I think Fears and Queen, they're likely to lose their minutes for a very long time. So yeah, it's a very tough position if you were the head coach of the New Orleans Pelicans.
It is time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. It's perfect for seeking birdies, making great memories with your friends, and also it is a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little bit more of an extra push to power through your day, 5 Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever having to leave the green. I'm a pretty bad golfer, quite honestly. It's better be real about that than not, but I absolutely love to get out there and play with friends and family and also have a great time outside in nature and all that fun stuff. Just hoping that I'm actually might hit one or two maybe good real golf shots along the way. And quite honestly, golf is really about good times with good people and good flavors as well. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5 Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse to go to without ever having to leave the course or chasing down the beverage cart at any point. And now you can actually amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip and visit 5hewin.com. That's 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament ends October 31st, 2025. For me, Jose Alvarado, no matter what you think about him, is like way more likely to be a positive winning player this year than Jeremiah Fears. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. Maybe Fears will outperform like everybody's baseline for 19-year-old point guards, but I can count on one hand how many of them at that age have ever been even decent NBA players. And that's what it is. The Queen thing, obviously, you don't root for injury, and I hope Derek Queen, just for the record, I hope Derek Queen becomes good. I really do. He won't be good this year no matter what, I think, just because he's been injured and all that stuff. But the other thing, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but the center spot with Looney and BC, I mean, look, the Pelicans have good wings. You have Herb Jones and Trey Murphy, really good players. Zion is Zion. We know that. Jordan Poole had a bounce back season last year. He's still Jordan Poole. He's not great, but he's an NBA player. The center spot might be a disaster. I mean, I set that tone from you earlier. Like, what happens at center for this team, especially once Queen comes back?
So I think, they're invested in Yves Missi right now. He is, if you just look at his film, the highlights, not this film, if you just look at his highlights,
yeah,
you would say like, oh yeah, this is one of the most promising young centers in the league. He's a crazy rim protector, crazy athlete, crazy above the rim presence. But if you actually watch the film, you realize that he has a very long way to go before he's a positive contributor and ready to compete with the centers of the Western Conference. And by a lot of advanced metrics, regarding however you want to feel about those metrics, but a lot of impact metrics, the ones that sort of measure how much a player impacts the games from a plus minus standpoint, over a large sample, he grades out as someone that is like a bottom 400 player. And in some of them, like, there's 450 roster spots. You add about 50 or more so guys that come in and out of the league through 10 days and whatever, 2 ways, etc. Some of them he's like closer to 500 than, 400. And so a lot of that is he also had played a lot of minutes on a team that suffered a ton of injuries, and he didn't get to play with a ton of NBA caliber players by the time, he was really getting a lot of run. And so it's difficult to have a great plus minus when, you're playing with Elfrid Payton and Jeremiah Robinson Earl and, Jamal Cain. It's very, very tough to do when you've, probably a lot easier to boost your stats if Brandon Ingram was healthy the whole year. DeJounte Murray was healthy the whole year. Zion was healthy. Trey Murphy, Herb, all those guys got hurt. So I will give him a bit of grace on that. Like, the truth of him as a player is probably that he's not the 500th or, the 470th best player. He's probably a little bit better than that. But from a skill set standpoint, he needs to be able to contribute it on the defensive glass more. Zion is not a contributor on the defensive glass. Herb Jones and Trey Murphy are not contributors on the defensive glass. Jordan Poole is not a contributor on the defensive glass. So your center really needs to be someone that inhales those rebounds, and Misi is just not that player. And he wasn't in college. He wasn't last year. And I'm not sure defensive rebounding is a skill that I've seen that actually improves over time. But I also think that he suffers from the typical young big man stuff where it's like, you probably shouldn't chase blocks at this moment. You should go for more position, but I think that's fixable. Yeah. Looney is seasoned.
He's fine.
Yeah, how can you, has he played more than 20 minutes a game recently? I don't remember the last time he did that. So expecting him to, I know a lot of Pelicans fans are like, oh, they could just start Looney and he was a positive player. He wins his minutes and things will be fine. It's like, yeah, that's a great theory. Are they going to do that? And can Looney hold up? I don't know. So I'm not optimistic about that rotation.
Yeah, I would agree. Even though, Looney's okay. He's a real NBA rotation player. It's just, to your point, how much can he play and how much will he play? Because going back to the last conversation, if Quinn comes back and they want him to play, maybe he'll play some center. And I think I know how that's going to go defensively at the NBA level as a rookie. So not so good. I'm going to get you out of here, but I have to ask you, like you alluded to it already with Zion. It might just be Zion, so you can say that. But how does this season go well for the Pelicans and not so well for the Hawks? Like, is it just Zion being awesome? Is that the one realistic pathway to the Pelicans being a decent team this year? Or are there other things that you're like hopeful about if you're on the Pelicans side?
I think the implicit answer is always health, right? So disregarding that, it would have to be that Poole does end up being a good fit next to Zion. And it, he does end up having his best year in a situation where he's not the primary advantage creator on a very, very bad team, right? If he's being tasked to, hey, you got to play off Zion, you can use your creativity to play against an already bent defense, because when Zion walks on the court, the geometry is already warped. And so that really helps players who are skilled shooters and skilled drivers. And I do think Poole possesses those skills. So I think playing your best players a lot of minutes together and minimizing the number of minutes on the court for players who are not good. And so those are guys, in my opinion, right now are like Jordan Hawkins. He's another person who's just a negative contributor at the moment. So I would kind of like have to lean into the Willie Green philosophy of like, just play the vets a lot. Play your, discover what your best 5-man unit is and run that unit into the ground. Discover your next best 5-man unit and run that unit into the ground, and hope that, they can all play 70 plus games together. Because I do think there's a world where the starting five of Poole, Herb, Trey, Zion, and insert center is like a +8 per 100 possessions type lineup. Just because Zion can be that good, and there's people that can fit around him in that group. And so if you can get a +8 unit there, and you can find another one that's like +2 or 3, and then you can find a third one that's like a 0, you might win 42 games, and that's great. That's all you need.
Yeah, this is a kind of a tributary of that, but like, what are they going to be good at, like on the court? Like, what is the best thing that you can like say, you know what, as long as, again, reasonable health, what's the strength of the team, like basketball wise?
It needs to be offensive rebounding. Like Misi is a really, really good offensive rebounder. I think he's already above 90th percentile in the league. Zion, of course, feasts off his own misses and others' misses too. The paint is going to be shrunk, so the wings have to crash too. I think they have to do that, and I think they have to be possession merchants in that they have to generate steals and turnovers and play in transition. It's just, if this team becomes a trotting half-court team, it's not going to work. And as long as Zion is on the court with a non-shooting center, they're never going to be a team that gets up 53s a game. So that can't be their strength either. So they have to figure out a way to win the possession battle, and that's going to be offensive rebounding and generating opponent turnovers. And I think they do have the personnel to do that, but it's a tall task.
Yeah, maybe it's just because it's a Zion team. I think it's more realistic for them to be like really good on offense than on defense. Like I don't really see a path to them being very good on defense. Like maybe you
I don't
disagree with
know.
me, but I
I
mean,
think,
go ahead.
yeah, look, I think Zion is actually to the point where he's underrated on defense. I think if he's in shape, he's actually a good defender, and it is a direct correlation with what kind of conditioning he's in. And if
That
he
makes
comes
sense.
into this season and if he comes into with even normal level conditioning, I'm not talking about excellent, just normal, I think he'll be a neutral defender. And if he comes in with good conditioning, he actually grades out pretty positively. And he is someone that is an event generator.
Oh yeah,
Defensively, blocks, steals, he does that. And I think one thing Willie Green has done is find a way to make units that feature CJ McCollum and Jonas Valanciunas and Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson and the like, and produce the sixth best defense, 2 years in a row. And then last year, everybody gets hurt. And of course, they're not a good defense. So like, I think there's a world where they're an above average defense, especially if Herb Jones is healthy the whole year.
yeah. I should probably. Yeah, that makes sense. Like there's some lineups I'm now envisioning that like do make sense defensively. I'm probably overemphasizing the rookies.
Yeah, if they play, then there's no shot.
I mean, and even Messi, to your point earlier, DeJounte off an Achilles, like it's not going to be a good defender. I'm very confident in that. Zion is. I agree with you. Actually, he's better than he used to be. So maybe again, there's lineups. It's probably finding two-way lineups. I'm thinking about like, all right, which ones of these are going to work? But you already laid that out. And I think we don't have to say it. Like the disaster potential is real. I mean, maybe no one's rooting for injury. You shouldn't be rooting for injury. But I think even if Zion plays like 2/3 of the season, they could still be bad. Like is that possible? Like I'm not saying that you should be anybody's rooting for that beyond the Hawks, but like, is there a world in which they are healthy and also bad?
Yeah, absolutely. I look back to the Stan Van Gundy year. It was like the COVID year, not the bubble. It was a year after the bubble.
Yeah.
They they had Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson for a good chunk of the season, and they were like a top 5 offense, and at stretches they were like the best offense in the league. When they were like the 29th ranked defense, and I think they won like 30 games or 27 games or something, some stupid.
Yeah, I just found it. They went 31-41 that year.
Yeah.
But also on paper, that was actually Zion's best season by the numbers, like on offense, I should say. He averaged 27 a game that year, made the All-Star team, and they still, to your point, weren't very good.
So that's the world, right? Like he's a world beater, and they just can't get it done because of everything else.
I don't know if you've done this anywhere else, and I won't make you if you haven't, but have you done like a throw everything together in a hat projection for the Pelicans? I know it's really hard to do considering all the variants, but like if someone says, okay, give me your best shot at a projection win total, what's going to happen? Do you have an educated guess?
I will stick with the Vegas. I think it was like a 31.5. I think 31-32 is very fair projection for this team.
And that's just for people to know, that's probably like a mid lottery team. Like that's probably like going into the lottery as like the 8th, 9th team, probably. I don't know. It depends on what else happens. There's only 4 or 5 teams that have projected win totals in like the mid to low 20s or below everybody else. So, for the Hawks standpoint, that wouldn't be best case scenario, but that also wouldn't be worst case scenario for the Hawks coming into the season, which I think I agree with you, by the way, like projecting it somewhere. I was going to probably land somewhere in the low 30s, but there's so much variance. I feel bad saying that over and over again, but it's so true as I look at this. I did a lot of prep for this, and even more now after talking to you, I'm like, man, there's a really wide berth for this team.
The one thing I'll say is that like it's really difficult to be one of those true bottom feeder teams. Like you have to intentionally try to be that bad, or everything everything goes wrong. And so the Pelicans, in my opinion, the one thing that maybe is not being accounted for in projections is that they have all the incentive in the world to try to win.
Yep.
And that can also manifest itself through trades. And so I just think that we can't rule out a possibility of a panic trade of sorts. And maybe that doesn't increase the win total, but maybe it does. And I think that's just something that's unforeseeable. But I do know that I feel like there's just not going to be a great deal of patience this year from Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver. If their draft day trades are any indication of the level of patience they operate with, I find it hard to imagine if this team is struggling, that they're just going to let it ride along with no changes. I think they will be aggressive in trying to do something, and there is that possibility that the something they do, it ends up increasing their win total. Maybe not to playoff level, but to a level that is not like something to get excited for if you're a Hawks fan.
No, yeah, I mean it's a fantastic point, honestly, because short of disasters, they can happen. It does matter on the margins if you're trying to win or not. Like if you have incentive to lose or not, does change decision making in February, March, and April if you are a bad team and they have no desire, no reason to try to lose. And also, there's an element of face saving. I mean, when you get the amount of bad publicity that they've gotten, I'm not. I mean, it's true. Like the last couple of months, like I'm sure they hear that, and like if I don't know if ownership cares. I don't know if the dynamics there that you would know, but like you don't want to give up a top 3 pick. Like if worse comes to worse and you can give up the 8th pick, the amount of attention paid to that will not be anywhere near it. If they're going in the lottery and they're 3rd in the lottery, and the Hawks are sitting there waiting, like that's a big difference in PR, and like just that shouldn't matter, but it's gonna matter. Like that does matter.
Oh yeah, it absolutely matters. That is something, I just think when the reaction to that trade was occurring live, like I don't think the Pelicans anticipated that it would be that bad. I think it frankly caught him off guard, which kind of again illustrates how like committed they were to the trade and their belief in what they were doing. But yeah, I mean, they were not happy about that. Who would be, to be honest, like any professional, if you were a professional and this is how your peers are talking about you, you'd be pretty pissed off that is how you're viewed around the league. And so it's understandable. That's not unique to them at all.
Oh, not at all. I was going to say, I almost compared it. I'll do it now. Different situation, but it's almost like the Nico Harrison thing in Dallas, where like he's just digging his heels in more now to like try to win, even though they have Kyrie out and like there's no like white flag waving of any kind coming out of Dallas because he's mad at the reaction. It's a different situation, but it is kind of similar to be like, you know what, I'm not hearing it. We're gonna do what we were gonna do the whole time, and yeah, I mean Dumars and Weaver and. It's interesting, man. Like I'm appreciative of you taking the time to do this and explain some of this stuff to me. I know it's not necessarily fun for people on the Pelican side, but I also know like I've been reading your stuff. I listened to your reactions and stuff after this. I knew some of the stuff what you were going to say, but it's a it also is nuanced. I think it's gotten to the point. The trade is not necessarily. There's some nuance in there, but as far as like what the team's going to be this year, I think you made a good pitch of like this could be okay for the Pelicans, which means the Hawks wouldn't be like parading down the street if things go.
My last thing that I want to say here, and I think they should just lean all the way into this. They've already made their bed. Look, they're struggling with ticket sales. There's like all-time low fan interest at the moment. You just go ahead and make that panic trade that I was talking about. Go ahead.
Do it now.
Do it now. Do it before training camp. Make the waves. Go get a starting center. Go get a contributor. I don't even know. I don't even know who's on the market, right? But the guy I bring up a lot is like Walker Kessler. I'm like, if you go get Walker Kessler, you got your rebounder and you got your rim protector, and you can win your possession battle. And like you can absolutely talk me into Poole, Herb, Trey, Zion, and Kessler as being a unit that just dominates its minutes. Like you could talk me into that because I don't know. I mean, just there's plenty of guys out there. If you want to go make a play on Lauri Markkanen, throw DeJounte and a bunch of salary into the mix, go do that. I don't care, right? Just go make that splash. Go all in, trade more picks. Who cares at this point, right? Like, why go into this halfway, half-baked? Like, oh, we're going to try to develop these rookies, and we got all these other experienced guys. Just I promise you, like, whatever the external reaction may be, like the people in New Orleans and the fans of New Orleans, if you make a playoff game next spring, nobody will care about the trade. You could have traded the number 1 pick overall, and most of the people would be like, yeah, they made the playoffs. Like it's, so just go for it. Just trade more picks, do what you got to do to round out your roster. And I think there is a world where they can do it. Cause I think I counted, I wrote this somewhere, but I think they have, like, by my count, 8 guys that have the ability to be positive contributors. And if they can get like 2 more, and they can really get to like 9, a solid 9, I think they can be a winning team. And what you've done is you've excised all the low level minutes. And I think if you take care of the low hanging fruit, there's a world where they can be a team that's like, all right, they won 48 this year. Like, that's a good team.
Yeah. I mean, I would not choose that team building strategy, but you're right that, like, it might sell, and it kind of makes some logical sense. I mean, I cannot stop thinking, and I promise I'll let you go, about all the conflicting interests on this team. Like Willie Green, man, like, I don't know what you're supposed to do. I really don't, because you said earlier, like, you got to try to win. And if you do, and Joe D knocks on your door and says, "Where's Jeremiah Fears?" And he's like, "Well, Jeremiah Fears is going to make us lose, Joe. Like, you have to understand, he's going to make
Troy
us
Weaver
lose."
knocking on the door.
Well, or Troy Weaver. Yeah, it's just, you're right. But, like, I'll be fascinated to watch. I won't make you come on too often to talk about it, but I might check in with you every once in a while to see how things are going.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Let's do this again.
I appreciate you taking the time. For honestly, all joking aside, Hawks fans are going to want to follow the Pelicans. So where can they follow all of your work this coming season once you dial it back in?
Yeah, all my writing will be on Substack at intheknow.substack.com. We have a podcast that's also called In the Know. It's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, the likes. And then you can find me on Blue Sky at Fear the Brown.
Check it out. I appreciate it one more time. Thank you so much for doing this, honestly. Very much appreciated. As for everybody else, subscribe to Locked On Hawks. Check out In the Know across all platforms, and we'll see everybody next time.